Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Sons of Ours podcast. I am Micah Flores.
And I am Ian Wintering.
That's
that is right.
We are
Jinx.
back.
You owe me a soda. Yeah, so this
Coke or Sprite? Or Pepsi?
No, Dr. Pepper. But
Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper is founded in Texas.
There you go.
Yep.
Anyway, so this is our first episode in a long time. I feel like it's been ages.
Yeah. Yep.
Mostly because Tony Machado kind of took over for us over the break.
Yeah, they put out a couple episodes over the break.
Right.
One during finals week, I think, too.
Yeah, and the other one was like right after New Year's or something. But
yeah.
So it's great to be back. Just so you know, as far as our lives, we have just started the new semester.
Mm-hmm.
We are our first week into classes, so there's no stress, no nothing. It's just smooth sailing right now.
Yeah. No, it's always funny at the beginning of the semester because you start classes and there's, I mean, at least for me, I always have a ton of zeal at the beginning. I'm ready to go. I am just blown away by like all of the new stuff that we're getting in, the new information that we're learning, and the new theological themes that we're going to be learning throughout the semester. And then like 3 days in, I'm just like, my head's exploding and I'm like, I'm like,
right.
How do I adjust back to studying again? Like,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it's like, I'm going to do all the readings this year.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And then I find out by the end of the first week, it's like, okay, I need to be a little more reasonable.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
we just go hard like the first week. That's my experience at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
it'll be interesting too. So, I have started, so one of the classes I'm taking this semester is theological anthropology and eschatology with the Father John Nepple, who is, I don't know how many of our listeners listen to the Catholic Stuff You Should Know podcast, but that's that guy. That's Father John Nepple. And so it's just kind of funny that these worlds are kind of colliding. Yeah, he's also my formator. So
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But
yeah. Yep, they're having their 10th anniversary party at the seminary.
Yeah, this weekend. This episode will be airing after that, but yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And today we have with us on the podcast Julius Lulay.
Why don't you say hi to everybody,
Julius?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm happy to be here.
Yes. So Julius, this is a wonderful. This is going to be a wonderful podcast. So Julius is in my class, third theology. He's on track to become a deacon.
I'm honored to be in his class.
Yes. Yes. But if you can't tell, he is from Africa. So he, hopefully you guys can understand his accent.
Oh, please excuse me, my accent. I'll try to be articulate. The Holy Spirit can interpret it.
Yeah. Julius is from
Uganda.
Casa Luero.
Exactly.
That's the name of the diocese, right?
Luero
Yes.
Yeah.
diocese in Uganda.
Okay. The youngest of 19. How
There's
exciting.
19. So
Wow.
Uganda isn't even the size of Colorado.
I think Colorado's
is it?
bigger than it, yeah.
It's smaller than Oregon State.
It's smaller than Oregon, but it has 17 dioceses in it.
and
Oregon has maybe 2 or 3.
Arizona has 2.5.
Yeah, which is crazy. The church in Uganda in different parts of in different parts of Africa is just exploding right now.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's cool to see just the Holy Spirit taking over. And
I remember you telling me, Julius, it was like, there's like a statistic of how many people in Uganda are Catholic?
Yeah, I think about 12 million people. So that would be about 35%.
35%. That's
Yeah.
So
incredible.
it is exploding. We are really reaping the fruits of the Ugandan martyrs and their witness.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah, and that was pretty recent.
Yes.
Yeah.
19th century faith.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, the martyrs are always, or the blood of the martyrs is always the seed of the church. You see it like in every region. You know, we see it in Mexico recently too. There's a lot of martyrs from the Cristero Wars, and right now it's like, I mean, most almost like every person you meet from Mexico or even like different parts of Central America, they're at least baptized.
Yes.
Right.
It is like it's completely taken over the culture in some way.
Yeah, there is a beauty there when the
right.
culture thinks everything has collapsed and failed.
Yeah.
God takes that and
Right.
He just multiplies things in incredible ways.
Right.
The fun fact is that the youngest of those martyrs, he was 14. He is born in my diocese.
What?
So I'm blessed.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
Nice.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool. What's his name? Do you remember?
Saint John Baptist Kizito.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
St. John Baptist Casseto.
Yeah, that's great. And your dioceses probably are pretty old, right? They have a lot of history.
Oh, kind of.
You mean
Missionaries came there in the 1800s?
Yeah, the Catholic missionaries, there were actually two, one priest and one brother. They came on 17th February 1879.
Oh, okay, that's a lot later than I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so everything's pretty new.
Yeah, everything is new, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, but they found the Protestantism already going on maybe 2 years, and Islam had already established itself, promising heaven and earth.
Right.
Then Catholicism comes and it changes everything. In less than 4 years, we get 22 Ugandan martyrs.
Wow.
From then, history changes until now. Amazing.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
That's incredible.
So what was the country like then before a lot of missionaries started going?
We knew there was God as a creator. We called him Katonda. But also there was a mixture of natural religion and some voodoo. So there was a lot of witchcraft too.
Oh,
so
man.
it was everything.
That's crazy, yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So.
Yep. And I don't. What else? Ugandan. What's your favorite type of like Ugandan food? I don't know. We see you eating a lot of. I mean,
bananas.
You hear this all the time.
Bananas and peanut butter every day.
Peanut butter, bananas.
I live with
see
him.
You make
that's
Julius has the most incredible way of not getting sick too. He makes these really great drinks with like garlic and
what?
I just they're just special because they're Julius's drinks.
Yeah.
When it comes to food, I always tell people I have a missionary stomach. and I have faith. Jesus said, if you have little faith, you can command this mountain to move from here to there. So I can command mountains from the plate to my stomach.
Oh, man. So it's been really interesting too. So I live with Julius, and like half the time he won't eat the food that's like provided. He'll just get a banana with like peanut butter or something. Yep. But the other thing that we constantly make fun of him for is he doesn't like cold milk.
Oh, yeah.
It's got to be room temperature.
Yes.
And so he'll put his cereal, he'll pour the milk in it, and he'll microwave it.
Yeah.
I put the cereal after microwave.
Okay, fair enough.
Get it right, man. Good grief.
You have to. The protocol has to be observed.
Have you even tried it, or are you just going to make fun of him for it?
I'm just going to make fun of him for it. I'm not even going to try it. So one of the big reasons why we wanted to bring Julius on to this podcast is because he has a lot to tell. You have, I think, a pretty powerful story, and we just kind of wanted to share that with our listeners. And so, at least to begin off, just to give some background, like obviously you come from Uganda, but like why don't you tell us
a bit about know where Uganda is?
Maybe they don't.
Some people
explain where that is and how you ended up in Denver.
It's a small country on the east of Africa, beautiful country. And so I discerned my vocation when I was 11.
11 years old?
11 years old.
Everyone to hear that one more time.
With the grace of God, of course, because I was such a stubborn kid that it would never happen. But with the grace of God and the generosity of a priest I fell in love with, who journeyed with me, and good people at the parish, just seeing good men and good mothers who would help me understand different things about faith in my life. So I considered it, and also it came with my growth in the faith. And so I started my discernment. And when I was 14, I actually made a move to the seminary. So
wow.
I officially began my training to the priesthood when I was 14. So half of my life.
It's been how old are you now?
I'm 29.
Oh my god.
And a couple of months.
Yeah.
And a few days.
Yeah. See, we don't have that in the state. We used to. We used to have like grade school
high
seminaries, but not
seminaries.
not anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess if I grew up here, I would be lost. For me,
Yeah.
it was either that early or never.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when Julius showed up to spirituality here, we were all like talking about our stories, how long I don't know, just where we'd come from. And Julius had mentioned that he'd already been in seminary for like
10 years.
10 years. And we all just looked at each
Everybody
other.
else is like, what you have to understand is spirituality year is like an
Right.
entry level like year. It's usually everybody's first year in seminary. And so
Yeah. We heard that and we're like, oh my gosh.
Is it
Wow.
professor or something?
Yeah.
Not quite.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
So-
I mean, most people spend 10 years in seminary and they're already ordained.
oh, I
like
mean,
it's an 8-year process for us.
yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah,
That's
It's
crazy.
a beautiful journey, a lot of
Mhm.
growth, especially in the idea of fatherhood, because you have to learn, first of all, to be a good son.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of stuff to learn about that, how to be a good son. So it's good God gave me an opportunity that early, first of all, to learn how to be a good son, a beloved son, and know my identity so that I can also be able to respond to being a spiritual father in the future. So it's
Right.
been a beautiful journey for me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What was that like in your life? Like who was that priest who showed you that fatherhood that allowed you to kind of have the freedom to be a good son? Or was that in seminary or before? You had mentioned someone before that kind of helped you discern that.
Yeah, I think it goes back to my catechism classes, because as a child, I was so stubborn that I had trouble listening to my parents. So, literally to everybody.
Join the club. Join the club.
Even my teachers had time with me. But I think I had a crisis of identity. I was deep down in my heart, I was struggling with the idea, who am I and what's the meaning of my life? And I guess I didn't know that I could be lovable. I didn't know that
Yeah.
there's something who loves me. So having that crisis, not having a full experience of love, even though my parents tried so much, especially my mom, but in me I had that doubt that I can never be loved because I had that crisis of identity. Who am I? And here we go. Here comes this priest from Italy by names of Father Dominic. He was really a good priest to relate to, and he loved children, and he accepted children the way they are, and he would take you the way you were and try to help you grow. And he taught catechism classes, so I had him for classes a couple of times, and just loved him. I loved his beard and his white cassock. So like, man, it would be cool one day to have a white cassock and a huge beard. So like, that's the man I want to be.
Yeah.
And so that drew me closer to him. Of course, my mom forced me to go for catechism classes. I hated going for catechism. But I was hooked up, first of all, because after classes, we would go and play soccer with my friends.
Oh,
So even though I missed a couple of classes because I would run away, because I could not take it, so I could wait for when are they getting out, and then we play
Yeah,
soccer.
you're like waiting out behind the tree, like peeking your
Exact-
head out the side from behind the trunk.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, are they out yet? Are they out yet?
How do you know my life? That's exactly what I Yeah, but with the time, I was drawn in by his personality, and he had a skill of just evangelizing kids and
Wow.
drawing
Yeah.
these huge pictures of Israelites and their journey and how those people loved God and how they suffered in the desert. And I was really drawn in. So drawing closer and having a one-on-one friendship with Father Dominic, it gave me an opportunity to see a true fatherhood figure. Like, this guy is a real father. And he helped me to understand who really loved me. And that's when I got to know that really there is a God who loves me so much that he even came down here on earth to die and just to give meaning to my life. With that, I was just blown out. It's like, wow, really? So like that conviction that there is somebody who loves me, that when I was that young, it got me into thinking about how can I respond to this love. And then so I started discerning with that idea of desiring to respond. But of course, to be able to respond, I had to grow. First of all, to pause and receive and be a good son, learn how to be a good son, take it easy, don't go too crazy being a father today. So he helped me to open up. So
yeah, and I think that that itself is pretty profound, especially for somebody so young to receive that, because
especially a boy.
Right.
No.
And at least I don't know if this is just for myself, but just growing up, I always misunderstood the faith not to be our response to God's gift of love,
exactly,
but us trying to get God to love us, right?
Exactly.
So it's like this constant thing that you're always worrying about. And it took me much longer for me to realize that, no, it's there's a priest that told me it's not, and I think he was quoting Pope Benedict or John Paul II, but it's not man's search for God, it's God's search for man.
Exactly.
And that's the story of receiving that, learning how to be a son,
exactly.
like you had said.
And that actually gives power to to Christianity, because with Christianity, it is God coming to seek us. He's always running after us, and he's never outdone in searching his children out. He always goes out to run after us and pursue us in love, and we just have to allow him to love us and embrace us and be able to receive that love. Whereas with other religions, you try to make effort always to please God, and I need to do stuff for this God, otherwise I'll get in trouble. So Christianity is powerful with that idea.
Right. I mean, this highlights just like a huge important part of discernment too, in any walk of life, like whatever God is calling us to, because especially here in the United States, I'm sure it's similar in Uganda, but one of the things that's emphasized the most in our society is work and what we do, what we do in our work. And so, because that's emphasized so much, we start with that. We're like, okay, who am I?
Exactly.
Well, let me look at what I do. Okay, if I look at what I do, then for me, like when I was young, I was a soccer player. I was a skier. I don't know. I knew who I went to school. So it was like all of, to see who I was, I would just look at all of those things.
Yeah, so your identity was in that. I'm this because I do this.
Right.
Yeah. And the most important part then is instead of our identity coming from what we do, instead of our identity coming from what we do, it has to be the other way around.
Yes,
we have to receive.
I have to receive it.
Our identity from a relationship that we have.
Exactly.
And then that frees us to actually know who we are to respond to a call.
Relationship becomes very important because relationship, I think, in my life, has always been the beginning of opening up. Because in the beginning, when I was struggling with that identity crisis, I think my biggest problem was to cut off from everybody, even my parents and my elder sisters. Like, I just want to be in my little kingdom here. Don't come in my kingdom. So keep in your kingdom. I keep in my kingdom. I'm good. You're good.
Right.
Yeah, and we live in isolation. We live a guarded life. And because not only does what we do shape our identity, but then that shapes our relationships in our lives.
Exactly.
So who do we hang out with when we're young? We hang out with the people that we do stuff with, and it ends up not being very deep or fulfilling relationship by any means.
Yes.
By any means, and there's not true communion. There's not
That's
true love.
true.
There's, you know.
Yeah,
It's
when I
like-
was growing up, I loved mangoes, and the only friends I could hang out with, you had either to play soccer or to be a mango
Right, yeah.
searcher. So
Yeah, a mango searcher.
Exactly. We go after trees and climb trees and trees and trees for mangoes. So if you want to be my friend, you got to be to have that. So,
Excuse me, sir. What are your thoughts about mangoes?
exactly.
That's really
It's
funny.
interesting. Yeah, sometimes when we are defined by these physical stuff, work, or what we do, and like when I was reflecting about my childhood, like the friends I made because of soccer or because of mangoes, being able to climb trees. So what if I broke all my legs? That means I was done. I would never
Yeah.
have friends
Yeah.
because soccer is done.
Yep.
Mangoes are done. So there is nothing like
Yeah.
to help me have friendship.
Right.
So
What goes deeper? Than
exactly.
just what I do.
Exactly.
you know?
All my friendship was just superficial because soccer, mangoes, soccer.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah. Yeah. And it's what a profound gift how early you started to think about that and realize that, right? It usually takes just so long. I mean, it takes kind of like really intense experiences, like, I don't know, like what you're saying. Like if I broke my leg, then what would I do? Like I wouldn't have these things that I do, and therefore I wouldn't have these relationships that I usually have in my life. You know, sometimes it
What are you
takes.
talking about if you broke your leg?
Oh, yeah,
You
right?
literally did.
how does it feel, Mike? But I mean, it goes back to what Ian said about being able to receive that identity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So instead of our identity and relationships flowing from what we do, it's the other way around.
Exactly.
Right?
We have to receive. Somebody has to put pointers in your life.
Yeah.
And like, I think you are this. And that's where
Yeah.
we have the gift of parents.
Isn't that crazy?
Yes.
We are such a mystery to ourselves
Exactly.
that we need other people to learn who we are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We need them to put pointers that
Yep.
you are actually this. You think you are this and this.
Yeah.
You are actually this. To be able to affirm that. And I think that's where even God, as Ian said, God is always pursuing us. He's
Yep.
always running after us. And he even puts people on our way to be able to help us identify, put pointers for us that you are this, you are this.
Right.
He's always helping us through different people. Like for me, it was getting Father Dominic from Italy, becoming a missionary in my parish, and then this kid who is nobody just falls in love with this Italian priest, and
Right.
then he's the beneficiary of this, and he puts pointers that you are this.
Yeah.
And
Right.
it's powerful how much that can be the light for everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
Right.
and you think about the crisis in our culture of identity,
Oh man. Yeah.
and that obviously has something to do with the crisis of fatherhood, the crisis of parenthood, because
Exactly.
who in a child's life is the most important in identifying that identity?
Exactly.
The parents. And if they're not there, no wonder people are so confused about even something as obvious as their gender, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And
I learned to be a man, first of all, from my dad,
Right.
and also from this priest. So with these, I could relate. This is what it means to be a man,
Right.
and
Right.
and they take that initiative to assert them to assert it. It's you are this.
Mm-hmm.
Just being able to hear that from a person you love, from a person you trust, it is everything. It was everything for me. It's you are this.
Right. Because what happens if we don't have that, right? We just start trying to just experiment with a bunch of different things. You know what I mean?
right.
Mm-hmm.
We're searching for identity. We're searching for who we are, So I know it's kind of funny to look back. There's like a certain friend I had who like went through a ton of phases, like in high school. Like this happens for a lot of us because we're trying to figure out who we are. But you start out, maybe you're like a skateboarder, like a skater or something like that, and then you're like, no, this doesn't really fit me, so I'm going to move on to something else.
Exactly. Yeah, you're testing this and this and this, jumping around. It's like trying to eat everything. You end up eating nothing because you're nibbling at everything.
Right. Yeah, and like what you said with people are going so far as to experiment with their genders too. Like a big topic is gender fluidity in quotations marks. So it's like people are waking up day to day and just deciding that day, who do I want to be? I'm trying to find who I am. No one's told me, no one's affirmed me, so I'm just going to try to figure it out and decide for my own. Right? So, as we said, our relationships, not only with our parents, but most importantly with God the Father, reminds us and shapes and allows us to discover who we are at our most deepest, intimate level of our inner self.
Exactly.
Right?
And for me, with that identity, growth in identity, it came with a conviction of somebody who really loves me. Because
that has to be there. It has to be in a relationship of love, because if it's a relationship where you don't trust the person, then you won't trust what they say.
Exactly.
Right?
It has to be a relationship of love, and that conviction that actually there is somebody who loves me and I'm actually lovable. So that was like the beginning of everything. It's like, man, I had this lie all my childhood that I'm not lovable because I'm worthless. But having that confirmation that you are actually lovable and somebody loves you, that gives you an opportunity to think about how you can even love. Like, since you're lovable, somebody loves you, you are also called to love. So that was
that gift to
exactly another. To make that self-donation in love, in trying to respond to that generous love. So that really got me into thinking about seminary.
Right.
So, wow. If God wills, and this is the best way to say yes to the gift of this love I've received, let it be.
Yeah.
Right.
That's so cool.
And think about too, and just reflecting on my own experience of self-knowledge, is you become so much more free, but also steadfast and strong when you realize your identity, right? Mm-hmm. And it in a way, it's the devil can't touch you anymore, right?
Yes.
Because especially when that identity is rooted in God the Father.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Because he gives you something that is untouchable and unmovable. Mm-hmm. Will you struggle? Will you doubt? Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly what sin does. That's exactly what the devil's mission is for you to forget the identity that you have been given.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, we see that in the garden at the fall. The first thing that the evil one's going at it is Adam and Eve's relationship with God the Father. And I mean, what does he say? Did God really tell you that you can't eat?
Really? Are you sure?
Yeah. Did he really tell you
sure
that you can't eat it lest you die? And then I mean, that's like our first sign when of the evil one's presence, and so we want to kind of just like ignore it, reject it right away. Yes. But what Adam and Eve get in dialogue with him.
Exactly.
More half-truths, more lies, and 10 minutes later, they're eating from the fruit.
And he actually,
trying to grasp to be like God, to become God.
Yeah, and even he comes back with the Son of God, Jesus Christ himself, in the desert, trying to test him.
Yeah, he does the same thing.
Are you really the Son of God?
Are you really? Is that really your identity?
It's like, you a son of God with a human body? Unbelievable.
Not possible.
I know, impossible. Yeah. So it's like a
and
question of identity.
Then he's like, show me, prove it.
Yes. Yep. Fly here.
That's who you are. Prove it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Turn a bunch of rocks into bread, and we begin to chew right now, and then I'll believe you.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's like, but God has given us an identity that nobody can take away.
Yep.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's so incredible. Yeah. Because as what Ian was saying is, in the face of failure, in the face of discouragement, in the face of fear, we know who we are. And if I make this mistake, that doesn't change it, you know?
Exactly.
If our identity, like if we had placed our identity in what we did, if we placed it in, I don't know, soccer is always the first thing that comes to mind because that's what I did in my life, you know?
Yes.
As soon as I stopped playing well in soccer, my identity was compromised. I had so much fear, I had so much anxiety, and I was constantly trying to protect that and build that and make sure that it never went away. Because if I stopped playing soccer, if I stopped being a good soccer player, so went my identity, you know?
Exactly.
But rooted in God the Father, it's like we know that.
Yes.
God is constantly pouring out his love to us, constantly. Even the fact that we continue to exist, that he continues to hold us in being is the sign that God loves us,
Just
that
amazing.
he's constantly loving us into being. So,
I admire kids, little children. Like I like going to parishes on Sundays, and after Mass we go down for coffee and donuts, but I always want to learn something from these little kids. But you see this kid, the first thing he or she does is to spot where mom is. It's like, okay,
where's mom?
Yeah, mom is seated here. So they, based on where mom is, they begin to make the small loops, playing with other kids, going around. And then with the time, the loops become bigger and bigger, bigger and bigger. But all the time, their eyes is on mom. Where is mom?
Yeah.
If you take away mom, no more loops. But as long as mom is there, is seated somewhere, the loops may become bigger and bigger. The child might get lost in there in the midst of 100 kids, but he or she knows somebody who loves him or loves her is somewhere.
Yeah.
So his identity or her identity is rooted in somewhere, in a parent.
Yeah.
And the loops can make bigger. So this kind of the way I look at my life. So like when I know that God loves me and have that conviction, I begin to make loops in the world.
I'm free.
Yes, I'm free. But I keep my eyes focused. As I'm making my loops, I might get some doubts or get mixed up with other stuff in the world, but I know where to look.
Right.
I just turn around and look at, oh, Daddy, he's right there. I can continue making bigger loops. So So next time you can learn something from kids. So I love learning from kids.
Yeah. Which kind of gets us into, so one of the things that we also wanted to talk about in relation to this topic of fatherhood was a movie that we all watched together. This movie, just a fair warning, it is very intense.
It's not
very
for the
violent.
faint of heart.
It's not for kids by any means.
Don't try it at home.
But it has this profound message of fatherhood.
Yeah, and it's a very powerful movie. Like you will cry.
Right.
I guarantee it.
Yeah, it's called Blood Diamond for those of you who may have seen it or have heard of it.
You need to say it in a bigger voice.
Blood Diamond.
Blood Diamond.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's how intense it is.
It came out in 2006, and if you're not familiar with it, it has Leonardo DiCaprio as the main character, and I don't think any of the other actors or actresses are famous.
Yeah, I don't.
But
I don't really know.
Remember Dia?
Well, Dia is the name of the
because
kid.
I identify myself in that kid, so how could I forget Dia?
But so Blood Diamond follows the story of this guy named Leonardo DiCaprio, who's this Australian.
Well, that's not his name in the movie, but
no, I'd forget the character's name. Anyway, he's an Australian, and he is basically involved in the blood diamond industry. So he goes out to
Sierra Leone.
Where were they in the movie?
I think it is Sierra Leone.
Sierra
that's
Leone.
Right. And
just a country in Africa.
Basically tries to get a hold of illegally obtained diamonds that are usually made by slaves.
Not made, but found
by slaves,
like that,
and there's the whole thing with child soldiers, which is what makes this movie very intense and hard to watch. Is a lot of the child soldier stuff.
Yep.
Well, anyway, he runs into this African guy that escapes the slavery camp because he finds this massive diamond, and his son had been kidnapped and was part of the slave, or part of the child soldier army, and so it's about Leonardo DiCaprio helping him to reunite with his son. Right.
Yeah. I mean, so you kind of know more of how, because you kind of lived through it, like how that all works, like the corruption of the different tribes or the different people who want to have power, and so they're
people who try to invent kind of live false fatherhood, and they take children and corrupt them, and that has been kind of in place in different parts of the world. It was the same story back in a day or so in Uganda with the recent war, which and took about 20 years. It ended in 2006 in northern Uganda, in Gulu, where I actually spent 3 years doing my philosophy. So it's always fascinating to see what the darkness of the human heart can lead people to, and corrupting the young. They could kidnap children and take them away from their parents, and sometimes kill their parents and make them soldiers, and just indoctrinate them and feed them on marijuana and other
different
strong drugs.
Well, and like we had just talked about with the tactic of the devil, right?
Exactly.
is to falsify that identity or create doubt. And at least in this movie, they do a good job of demonstrating how they no longer call the children by their maiden names, by their given names.
They
make up new names, and that becomes their identity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
See me no more.
Right. See me no more was one of the names. And they create these fake ranks amongst the children.
Exactly.
So that at certain points, if they've achieved this accomplishment of killing this amount of people, then they give them their manhood by making them a certain rank or something.
Now their identity is in what they're going to do.
Right.
So it's terrible. So it's been always a challenge, and I pray one day it's a story no more. And
because you see the true evil and darkness of this reality in the movie, right? So I mean, so it follows kind of both of those stories. It follows the story of this kid who's slowly being corrupted by the people who have assumed this power and are trying to make a ton of money based off collecting diamonds and selling them illegally and stuff like that.
To the point where he cannot even recognize who his father is.
So it follows that story, and then it shows Leonardo DiCaprio and the child's father on their search, one for the diamond. Leonardo DiCaprio is searching for the diamond, still out of greed, and he's using this man who's desperately searching for his son, to get that to get the diamond, and the father's just like trying to find his son, trying to get him back. It's like God the Father, right?
Exactly.
Just
They're both
searching all over the place for us, running after us, going through extreme suffering, like
making
Jesus on the cross.
Risks.
Right?
Talk about a squanderer, like somebody who squanders his life just for his child, risking his life. He made some big risks.
Huge risks. Was held at gunpoint, like all these different crazy things, looking for his son, right? And sorry guys, we're gonna spoil it. So
it's not really a spoiler. It's not the end of the movie. It's near the end of the movie.
I guess not. Yeah. Okay. But it's kind of a spoiler. But so after basically going like all over the country, the father, he's been through so much. He like miraculously is able to come back into contact with his son.
Yes.
And the big diamond that they've been searching for as well is at that same camp that the son is at.
Yes.
And so they get there, and the father just goes through crazy things to like protect himself, protect his son.
Yes.
And
he's all about his son all the time.
whole time.
Even in his dreams, it's like dreaming one day to be reunited with his son.
Yeah.
Like,
And he sneaks, like, just to kind of like get the perspective of it. So they arrive at this camp and he realizes that his son is there, but it's filled with, enemy soldiers.
yes.
Yeah.
And he sneaks in the middle of the night to go look at him, just to go see his face. And he's overwhelmed. He can't hide anymore. So he drops everything and he just grabs his son and he's just like, we have to go. But his son has been so corrupted, he doesn't recognize his father.
Doesn't recognize his father at all.
He's put on another face. He
Yeah.
doesn't.
Yeah, and it comes to that, like, after there's like kind of like a crazy battle, and they're right by where the diamond is, and the son ends up with a gun in his hand, and is pointing at it. His father pointing at Leonardo DiCaprio,
Well,
and
son wanting to kill the father.
yeah, because
Right.
he doesn't know who he
I
is.
know.
He doesn't know
Yeah.
who he is, and he doesn't know who his father is.
Right.
And the father looks at him and says, "You are DA. You are my son. You are my son.
Your mother loves you.
Your mother loves
He
you."
wants to make you plantain.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like
She wants to
describing all
make you
the best
bananas.
food. Exactly.
You are a smart man.
This is what you like. This is what you like. And actually, the baby at home misses you.
Yeah.
It's like being able to hear that.
Right.
Yeah.
Like he just cries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The son. Yeah. It's that scene is one of the most powerful cinematic movie experiences I've ever had. And this is
Yeah, when I saw it, I was like, this is me.
Yeah.
right.
This is me.
Yeah. Everybody. It is the Christian story.
Yes.
It is a story of Jesus Christ condescending himself,
Yep.
going through all of the mud, all of the
Exactly.
terrible, awful things of humanity
Exactly.
in order to reach his son and say, and to remember, to remind him of
Yeah.
his identity. I am your father. It's kind of like Star Wars a little bit, but
the
obviously a
opposite of
lot
it,
more sentimental than the Star Wars.
No
But
matter what you have been fed on, no matter what you
Yeah.
think you were, no matter what the world says you were, no matter how broken you are this.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he says that. He says, "I know they made you do a lot of
Exactly.
bad things.
yes,
I don't care."
But you are not those bad things.
Yeah.
You are my son,
Yeah.
and I love you.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if you, I don't know, it's a great movie,
yes,
but it's really intense. Just that fair warning.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And, that's it right there. It touches us also deeply because this touches our very identity.
Yes.
It touches the deepest core of who we are.
Yes.
Um,
I think those words he speaks at the end, for me, I envision them as words of healing. Like they
Right.
penetrate so deep because he looks him into the eye. Even when Dia is holding a gun against him, he looks him right in the face, in the eyes, and say those words of healing. And like those words penetrate deep into the soul that he has to drop the gun
yeah.
and
you
receive his identity
Yeah.
right there.
You just see it. You just see all
Exactly.
the lies that he's believed about himself
Exactly.
slowly starting to be disarmed one at a time. And as those lies are being disarmed, he himself is lowering the gun.
Yep.
And the father's getting closer, eventually to an embrace.
Yes.
And they're both crying.
And that's what Father
Wow.
Dominic in my childhood got me into realizing. Like
right.
the power of God and the power of the cross. What Jesus came down to make me into. It's
Yeah.
like, that's it. There. See, he's been searching and searching and searching. He's never done in searching. He makes his loops and he's always having great dreams about me because he alone loves me and he wants me to experience that deep love because he knows once I am hooked up with that love, everything is set all right. Everything is set correct because love heals, love can expand the human heart and like, it works into the depth of the darkness in the heart and just flees everything and makes you like a child and like, wow, this is, I am loved.
Right.
And this is what I am. This is who I am. And I can respond to this.
Right. Yeah. And because I know who I am now, I can now make a gift of myself.
Exactly.
I can now discern my vocation. I can now find out who this person is that God has made me to be.
Exactly.
And out of that response comes, not everything is happy afterwards. There's still trials and stuff like that, because it's a continually deeper discovery of who we are.
Exactly.
But
it's amazing also, after that scene and after the son receives his identity right there, they're reunited, they take off. And the movie ends when father and the son are one and they're both happy. And actually they are the beneficiaries of the gold from the industry.
That's right.
Which is amazing. They are the beneficiaries. So it's like when I finally find my true identity in God the Father, who searches me every day, it's like my life actually begins there.
Yeah.
Like that's when I begin to live. It's like you can see this son, he starts to live again, because he has been dead all this time. Because he has been living in the world of dead men, like spiritual darkness, and like chanting evil hymns, see me no more, let's do this.
Yes.
Like his life actually begins that day, because he is freed, and you can see he begins to live again. And so like, this is me, like when I encounter God in the depths of my heart, especially in my weaknesses and in my sins and in my brokenness. Like I get that renewal of my life, and I get that healing, and that gets me into how do I respond and how do I live again.
Yeah. No doubt. And all of us have experienced hurt, and all of us have believed lies about who we are in our life and stuff like that. And some of us may have not had the best earthly fathers in different situations. And so whatever the situation is, we just make that prayer to God the Father.
Yes.
Show me your love and show me who I am, And if we need, like a lot, we'll probably need some sort of earthly father figure in our lives.
Yes.
We need someone to mirror the love of God the Father to us in an incarnate way, And so we can make that prayer. We can ask God to send those people into our lives, to send those father figures, to send those mothers to help us discover the depths of the love of God the Father.
Exactly. And something also I like in that movie, even though his deer stops thinking about his family and he stops thinking about his father, he's not even aware of the love the father has for him. His father, not for a single minute, not for a single day will he go without thinking about the son.
Yeah.
And this is, for me, this is God the Father to us, to everybody, to me. It's like sometimes I may forget, I may not be conscious of how much God loves me 24/7, every second in my life.
Yeah.
But God, at every moment, there is not a single microsecond where he doesn't think about me.
Right.
It's like it cannot happen.
Right. And because of that, like he's providentially shaping just like and acting in a way that will allow us to discover this in our lives, and he wants to do incredible things to intervene in a certain sense and to make friendships happen, or whatever we need, whatever we need to discover this. He's desiring all the time to make it happen. And as soon as we make that prayer, then it makes the space for God to act in our lives.
Exactly. And I think also that's where some moments of silence play a big role, like in my life. Because when I look at deer, when his father begins to speak to his heart, he doesn't say anything. He's
Yeah.
just silent all the time.
Yep.
So it's the moment of receiving. And for me, in my life, I think that's where silence plays a big role. Even a minute of silence and inviting God to speak to me, like for a minute or 2 minutes, that can make a big change in whatever is going on in my life in a day. It's like moments of silence.
Yeah.
Silence actually is powerful because it gets me into a disposition where I can receive those words of healing. And it's like that's why I love the confessional, because once you are done pouring out your baggage there, and then you keep quiet, and then the priest goes. It's like you just receive. You're saying nothing.
Yeah. Wow. Awesome. Great. Well, thanks, Julius. Thanks for sharing a little bit about your story. And we've had so many discussions about the Blood Diamond movie.
Yeah. We watched it twice.
We watched it 2 times.
In a matter of a month.
And I'm looking forward to the third one.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for having me. This was a pleasure to speak about my life, and I'm always happy to share my life.
Yeah.
It's a gift to share.
Just one quick little shout out before we end today's episode. If you guys happen to be at the big convention here,
the Catholic Stuff You
Should Know convention, we want to thank you for listening to our podcast. Because we obviously were there and we obviously met you. So, thank you, and I hope we will continue to do this.
Merry Christmas.
Yes. Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
and Happy New Year. Happy New Decade.
We're living in the 20s.
I'm pumped up for this decade. I don't know if I will be here next decade. So.
2020, baby.
Exactly.
Sam Munson keeps saying, "New year, new me."
Oh gosh.
I can take that.
So you have been listening to the Sons of Ours podcast.
That's ours with an A.
Keep it going into the 20s.
See you next time.
Thank you.